The college football coaching carousel continues to move today with the announcement that Florida State has fired their head coach, Willie Taggart. After this Saturday's loss to Miami, it drops the Seminoles record to 4 wins and 5 losses. So far in his short 1.5 tenure with the team, Willie Taggart has only gone 9-12. The pressure was mounting. Boosters had raised $20 million for his buyout. It's reported that Taggart will get paid $17 or $18 million in the settlement after his firing. I thought they would have potentially let him at least finish out the year or given him one more year. Reports that the program that he took over was kind of in shambles. I was always surprised. I was very surprised when Jimbo Fisher left Florida State, just because I always felt like the Seminoles were a top 5 level program. Why would you leave the ACC and Florida State to go to the SEC West and Texas A&M? And I know they've got a lot of money and it's in the state of Texas, but you got Florida State that's got a lot of money and you're in Florida, so it's kind of more than just a wash. But you could kind of tell when Willie Taggart took over that there was a lot of issues going on and it was going to take some time to build it up. It just looked like he wasn't being shown enough progress, and the Florida State just didn't have the patience to go through this, and so that's why the move is being made. If we take a look back to when Taggart was hired, I thought this was a good move. Taggart had a lot of success as a head coach. Yeah, he wasn't going undefeated in several years, going to a BCS game. But, if you take a look back to his time at Western Kentucky, he took them from a downtrodden program to a couple 7-5 seasons, getting second place in the Sun Belt one year. Then he moved on to South Florida, and they kind of struggled a little at the beginning, but he really started getting them going. An 8-5 record in his third year, a 10-2 record in his second year. Taggart was a guy that had a lot of Florida ties, and you could see that South Florida team being built up. And then he takes the Oregon job, and even though that they went 7-5, you started to see a lot of progress. There was, that was when Justin Herbert was just starting out there, and the staff that he had built there you could see the momentum going. And when Florida State happened, that was his dream job, and you would thought the success that he's had in those 3 spots, building up a program, going back to the state of Florida where he had all those recruiting connections. The reports were all those coaches, the high school coaches just loved Willie Taggart, and he just couldn't get it done. They have not looked good at all this year, and so it's a bummer to see him fired. I'm curious to see what his next step is going to be. I'd love to see him maybe go back to the AAC level, maybe the Sun Belt level, get another head coaching job and continue to build himself back up. He was a running backs coach with Stanford prior. But now that turns us to what is Florida State going to do? Who are they going to get to replace Willie Taggart? Now, the first name that's going to come out is Urban Meyer. And I think that's a legitimate thought because, as I've said, this is Florida State. This is a potential top 5 program. They've won a national championship not that long ago. Florida is a talent-rich state. There's a lot of big money boosters. They just raised $20 million to get Willie Taggart out, so they're invested in this program. But mainly they're in the ACC. Right now, it's Clemson and everybody else in the ACC. So if that's got to be enticing to some of these coaches to say, compared to maybe an SEC school where the SEC is loaded, the ACC is prime for the pickings, at least for that number 2 spot. So I think a guy like Urban Meyer, if he wants to get into coaching, he's going to have a choice. Is Florida State going to be an option, or is USC going to be an option? He had that success in the state of Florida, so that is intriguing. And maybe this is one of the reasons why Florida State made this move now, so they can go and start talking legitimately to Urban Meyer to get him to be their head coach. Another option out there is Bob Stoops, who's going to be coaching in the XFL for his first season. I don't necessarily see that happening. I know Stoops had coached at Florida as the defensive coordinator at one point, but he left a really good situation in Oklahoma. He's coaching right now, so with the XFL, and he gets to be that coach and scratch that itch, but not have to do with a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. I don't necessarily see him making that move. A couple of maybe the tier below candidates, Matt Campbell from Iowa State is definitely a name that's being floated out there. What he has done at Iowa State is nothing but remarkable. He was successful at Toledo again. It'll be curious to see if he moves down to Florida. What kind of connections he has? I think he's probably got to be one of the hottest coaching candidates. Is this a job that he wants to step into, or is he going to kind of wait once again and find that perfect situation? Is Florida State too big of a rebuild job for him? The coach that I think is the real sleeper here is Minnesota's PJ Fleck. He has the Gophers just riding high. They're the 13th ranked team in the nation. I don't think they're going to stay that high. They're probably going to lose at least 3 games this year. But this season is the best that Minnesota's had in a long time. Fleck might utilize this time to catapult him into that next higher profile job. He had a quote out there about his extension and moving on, and he said, we have a lot of stuff to handle this year. And it was really telling in his comments that he didn't lock himself up, and maybe that was just a slip. Maybe we're all reading too much into it. But I think he's got eyes on another job, and Florida State could be one of those. Once again, it's in the ACC. Yes, you're in Clemson's division, but you've got that chance to really succeed here. And I think Fleck would be a guy. Is he a little too corny? Is he a little too cheesy for Florida State? I don't know. But when you win, that's all that matters. Another sleeper option could be Kentucky's Mark Stoops. Here's a guy that I didn't really have a lot of high hopes for him when he took over the Kentucky job, and I thought he'd be a guy that'd be there for 4 or 5 years, and then they'd fire him, and they'd move on. But he's had some good success there. Last season was the best they've had, and even this year, even though they're not that great, he's still kept them competitive. Here's another guy, once again, he's playing in a tough conference in the SEC, would be moving down to Florida State, be that option. I don't think he's the top of their list, but I think he's, kind of in that maybe third tier type category. I know Brett Venables from Clemson is an option. Jeff Scott, the offensive coordinator at Clemson, is another option. Venables has been very, very picky on where he's gone. Is the move to Florida State an option? The problem is they're in the same division as Clemson. Is he going to have to play and recruit against them on a regular basis? That's something to kind of keep an eye on. If I had to make a pick on who their head coach is going to be, I kind of think PJ Fleck is going to be my number one choice, who I think they're going to get. But my second choice is Washington State's Mike Leach. He's already flirted with leaving Washington State. He all but accepted the Tennessee job. What's going to stop him from taking over Florida State? He's got the speed to run his offense. He's a guy that's he loves Key West, so he's a little bit closer to that vacation home, the state of Florida. I think if they want him, he's their choice. So if I had to guess who they're gonna get, not who they're gonna want. They're gonna want Urban Meyer. They're gonna want Bob Stoops. They're gonna maybe want Matt Campbell. I think who they're going to get, it's either going to be PJ Fleck or Mike Leach.